when interacting with the REST API, part of the important part of that process, of course, is going to be the authentication. Okay, and if I'm using the API directly, there's two different ways depending on whether I'm going against the service management model or the resource management model. There's two different ways I may be able to authenticate. All right, the first, through universal, is going to be through Azure Active Directory. All right, and there's a couple different things you can do with that. One, you can actually add an application and register an application in Azure AD. Now, normally, what you're doing with that is you're actually flowing authentication into the application from Azure Active Directory, but you can also kind of tie that in so that you can correlate possibly rights within your application to rights within Azure Active Directory. Okay? But in general, of course, what you're really doing is you're just authenticating against Azure Active Directory regardless of whether you register an application with it or not. I don't need to register an application in Azure Active Directory as an application in order to be able to control it through the API. Of course, I will need to authenticate, and the authentication would go through Azure Active Directory. Right? The other approach is a management certificate. And that's going to allow you to associate an X509 certificate that is going to be associated with your HTTP request, and that can be used for authentication if it's been registered within the Service Management API. You actually have to take, as you would expect, if I'm going to use a certificate for authentication, that certificate has to be understood on both sides of that authentication equation.